Here's the mic. Today's date is the 13th of September, 1987. We're in the home of Seymour and Shana Barlas. My name's Louis Greenstein. Andrea Kaiserman is here, and Mr. Meyer Adler, who we're interviewing. Okay. Will you tell me where you were born?
Well, I was born in two places, actually.
Can you explain that?
Very simple. I was born in 1914. I wasn't born then, but my mother gave birth to a son. She always told me that I caused the First World War. That was right in the second day the World War started. Or in the same day it started the First World War. And that was in a little town in Galicia. Rudnik, it's called Rudnik. But I consider myself born in August 30th, 1949, when I came in this country. A newborn American.
Good. All right, let's first talk about the first
born, about my mother's son.
On the second day of the...
No, around, I think it was in the... Now, in Poland was a law, if you're 18 years old, you have to register to the draft. And all these years, till I was 18, I didn't know that I don't exist even. Because it wasn't the war and everything was, didn't function nothing. And when I came to register, they looked in the book, I'm not there. And so was 21 other boys. So we had to go to the whole formalities to take out birth certificates. So the mother has to come in two witnesses. A mother could be a witness. Mother and father could be witnesses, but my father died when I was small. So mother got a witness, the Hebam. And they said that I was born when the Russian army invaded our town. Our town was on the border, the last town in Galicia, on the border. 5 kilometers from us was the border.
And was the Russian-Polish border?
Poland didn't exist that time. Russian-Austria. You see, Galicia is called the part of Austria what used to be, the part what used to be Austria, and it became Poland in 1918. And they established that that's September the 2nd, of course, 1914.
Tell me about the town. What was it like?
The town was a small town. It was 200 Jewish families with 5 synagogues, of course. And it was about 10,000 Polish people. And our house was in the same street with the church. As a matter of fact, they used to call it Kościelna. That means the church street. And everybody was Hasidim. Everybody was wearing beards and payas, including me. And everybody was in business because there was no Jewish farmers like any other.
Why not?
A Jewish couldn't be a landlord, not a landlord, a landowner. We could, if you read the history of the Jews, the Rothschilds, when they financed the whole world, they had to run their business in Vienna from a hotel. They couldn't open, a house. As a matter of fact, the Rothschilds, they became racing enthusiasts. And that was the reason, because they had a landowner, Zamoyski was his name, I think. he was the lord to the Austrian parliament, and they always blocked to allow Jews to have to own land.
So everyone in your town had businesses.
So every Jew had to become, and it's another thing. Most of the jobs what they were available was from the government. The post office, the railroad, the highway, everything. Now a Jew wasn't allowed. A Jew couldn't get a job. I never forget. I was once in Krakow. I was already about 18, 19, no, 21, 22 years old, and there was public Lutherans on the street. In Europe, you don't see him here. And there was a man always taking care of the Lutherans, and they were always underground, and the ventilation was very poor, and the men who took care always got a headache and a cold compress always on his head. And we came once, me and my friend, and in the middle in the ring, my friend claps me in the shoulder. He says, "Aren't you glad you are Jew?" I say, "Why all of a sudden you tell me that?" He says, "Well, I tell you, many times I was desperate of a job, and I would take a job like this, but as a Jew I couldn't get it." So you see, so a Jew had to be in business. Now people think that Jews are the best business. That's how they got the name. But when Israel became a country, we find out that they have the largest economy.
Could you tell me a little bit about your family?
Well, we were 7 children. One of them died at birth. One sister died at birth. And everyone, I am the youngest. All of them tried to leave home to find something better. My oldest brother, he left home. When I was 8 days old, they evacuated the whole town to Czechoslovakia, because the battles was every time back and forward, so they evacuated to Czechoslovakia. And later, in 1918 or 19, they sent us back. And my brother was that time about 14, 15 years old, and he didn't want to go back to the small town. So the borders were not established yet, and he went to Germany, Cologne. And he never came back. From Germany, he went to Holland, and from Holland he came to this country. And he finished college, and he's an accountant. As a matter of fact, he was a big help when I came in this country. He was a big help to me. Now, the other brother left home in 1928. He went to Germany. When Hitler came to power, when he dumped all the Polish citizens on the Polish border, it's called the Bonshine, used to call. He was between them. And he made his way back, smuggled his way back to Germany, but he didn't want to stay in Germany. He went to Belgium, from Belgium to France. And in France, he couldn't get registered. He finally find out that, you see, he was all you know, my friend says, "Aren't you proud to be a Jew?" A Jew is a lot of things to be proud. My brother told me he always was in contact with a Jewish organization there. And if it wouldn't be for them, he wouldn't be able, he would have been arrested and sent back to Germany or to Poland. So the Jewish agency there told him there is a request from farmers in Brazil for 25 workers. He says, "I'm a farmer." So he went to Brazil. In Brazil, he was there till 1941, and my brother here, who was here, brought him over here. Now, another brother I had, he died 12 years ago. He was the one, he went in 1932. He went to Israel. And he was a founder of a kibbutz there. The kibbutz is called Beit HaShita. It used to call it Beit Tel Yosef. Later they had with the Mapai and the Mapam, the fight what they have with Ben Gurion, they have a split. So they went to Beit HaShita. And yeah, in between, I have two sisters. One of them, of course, she married a Chassid. And this sister was with me in Siberia. We wind up in Siberia together. And she went with the whole family to Israel. Now, another sister, she wasn't so lucky. She lived in Krakow. She and her husband and her two children, I could never find out what happened to them, how they perished. When I came back after the war in 1949 from Siberia, so I came back to Krakow. And the reason what I picked Krakow was, first of all, I lived there, but most of them went to the occupied, to the what Poland took over from Germany. The reason what most of them went there because they chased out all the Germans, and it was nice houses. And I didn't want to do it because I was thinking maybe I will have a chance to find out about my sister and the family, but I couldn't find out nothing. One thing what I find out from a neighbor, that they went to the Plaszow ghetto, and from there they lost contact, and we don't know nothing. And
what was your? I need to keep. What was your life like before the German occupation? There was a Hasidic family. I imagine you spent a lot of time studying. What was life like?
What was like? 1 minute. I was the one on the left with my mother, and I didn't want to go away somewhere too. My mother says no. As far as you can go is any place in the country to a yeshiva. One Kaddish I have to, you know what a Kaddish is? One Kaddish I have to have with me. In case I die, when I die, she says, to have a Kaddish. So I went to the yeshiva. First I learned with rabbis in a town called Kreshiv. This whole town has 40 Jewish families and about 150 Gentile families. And that's what they call a shtetl. Now this town had only one synagogue, that's all. And a very nice rabbi. And I was there 2 years. Later I went to Krakow in a yeshiva. And when the war broke out, and I was in the yeshiva till 1934, 33, 34, I don't remember exactly. And later I was thinking, you have to make a living somehow.
Tell me about the yeshiva. What was it like?
A yeshiva? Now, when you say a yeshiva in the old country is nothing in comparison with a yeshiva here. There was no door. No door. You slept in different places. You know, you paid for the bed. You didn't have a room. You couldn't stay there all day. You just came in the evening to sleep. That's all. And in the morning you have to vacant this. And of course, and you ate take. That's called essen take. Days. You know, some people, they donated a day. Monday I ate here, and Tuesday I ate on the other day, and which it was nice because that was mostly rich people. What they now, when you talk about rich people in the old country, you know, there is a story that two people meet, you know the guy from which town are you? He says, so and so. Or you know Moshe there? He says, Moshe, yeah, sure I know him. He's a millionaire. He says, what kind of millionaire does he have $1,000? Well, not such a millionaire, but he's a millionaire. You know, a person who didn't needed help from nobody, who made a living, was called a rich person. And the 8 days in the summertime was a little hard because a lot of them went on they used to call it dacha, you know, on vacation. It wasn't exactly like in the country. They had places in the country, or they rented, and we were left. Some of them left us money, or they paid in a restaurant.
Did you eat at the same place on Shabbos every week?
Yeah, every week on the same place. Every Monday. When I came first, I had every day except Monday. Monday I didn't have. Now a day what you didn't have, so they give you. There was like a little luncheonette. It was a difference, not like here there was, but you can call it a luncheonette. So the yeshiva gave you a slip with 3 stamps, and you went there, and every time you got a piece of 2 slices bread with a little butter, you know, like a silver dollar or like a 50 cents, you know, a little butter and a cup of coffee. In the morning, in noon, and in the evening. You see, each stamp was what is. So Monday I didn't have a day, so I got this. And once, and when we were studying in the synagogue, where we were studying, you had to come around at least 4:30. You came after 4:30, you couldn't find a place where to sit. So I find a couple of blocks far is a synagogue, but they have more space there. And so we went to study there. We were 3 guys, we were studying. And I didn't notice you see, we came there around 4:30, 5 o'clock, we were studying there. And we were studying until 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock was the services. So I was noticing a person sits in front and always saw and watched how we were studying. After the second day, he comes over to us, he says, you guys have all the days to eat? So the other guy says, yeah, but he doesn't have a day. What day you don't have? I say, Monday. He says, you came to eat to me Monday. I find out later he was the richest guy in Krakow. I ate Monday, and when it came, that was in the summertime. When it came for the holidays, he says, are you going home for Rosh Hashanah? I say, only once a year I can afford to go home, or for Pesach I go home, because it costs a lot of money there. He says, how much cost it? So I told him. He says, you ride home, you came home. And he gave me the money for a ticket back and forward. He gave me twice a year the money of the tickets for Passover and for the high holidays.
The richest man in Krakow.
Yeah.
What was his name? Do you remember?
Hmm?
Do you know his name? Do you remember his name?
Yeah. Kurz. I'll take Kurz. It's a matter of fact, I read later in the Krakower yearbook that when the Germans came in, they made him in the Judenrat. And he refused to cooperate with him, and he was shot in public.
During that time in yeshiva, or before then in your childhood, did you experience anti-Semitism?
planning.
Can you tell me about it?
Well, it started off when I was a little boy. You know, in our synagogue here is a lady, Arlene. And this Arlene tells me when she hears singing Adon Olam Friday night, she knows she has to bring in the tea. And that always reminds me when she tells me this. I was living on the Church Street, and as a little boy we were playing on the street. And when people went to church, it was 10,000 people there, and that was the one on the church. And all Catholics, I was all Catholic town. When they went to church, we were still playing, it didn't matter. And when we had the hymn, they always, the organ was a very powerful organ there. When we had the organ playing the hymn, we knew we have to go to run home and mother shut all the shadows. When they went home from church, every Jew what they saw, they without mercy. Which we figured out later that there is something in the ceremonies what the priest used to tell them about the Jews. When Israel became a country, I remember I was in Germany at that time, and there was a guru who wrote back articles. It was a Jewish paper was there, it's called Jiddische Stimme. And she went with the Israeli army when they took Nazareth. And she wrote back an article, and when I read this article, it was such a joy to read. She writes, that's the first time in history, you see, when they took Nazareth is a Catholic town, and the priest, it was taken without a shot. The priest came out with white flags with the cross, and they ring the bells of the church, and they gave in. And the way she wrote it, that's the first time in history that a church bell ring for the benefit of the Jews. Do you know that every pogrom started with the church bell gave the signal? Every pogrom, including in Russia and in Poland. I never forget when I was 8 when my father died, and that was when the Haller chickens. I don't know if you're familiar.
With the what?
Haller chickens. You don't know what that is. Now, Haller was a general in the Polish army. And after the war was over, you see, in Poland, when the 1918 the war was over, but not for Poland. Poland still fought with the Bolsheviks, with Russia, with the Bolsheviks. And the war was actually over in 1921. And this Haller, he was a general, he was used to kill people. So he got a whole group with him, and they went from town to town and beat up Jews. I remember father came home once from the station, and with the half a beard cut off and his face all messed up. And I don't know if I have any good thing to say about the Poles. It's you have a living proof that all the concentration camps and the death camps, what he built it in Poland. In no other place. He tried in Czechoslovakia and they sabotaged it. And the Polacks not only they were happy with this, but they helped round up the Jews. There were some Polacks they were bragging, you know, like in the old time in the West, there no gunfighters, how many notches they had in the gun. They gave for every Jew delivered to the death camp. They gave something like I don't know, 2 pounds of flour, a pound of sugar, and they were bragging, I have already 20 pounds of flour
Tell me about the German occupation.
I wasn't too long for them. They came in September the 1st. The Germans, the war started September the 1st. That was on a Friday. I was in Krakow that time. And on Tuesday I ran away from Krakow. I went by foot. We went, a couple of friends, and the highways were full with people, including the Polish army they run. And while they were running, they were robbing us. Everybody was a spy to them. And on Saturday afternoon, I came in my hometown. And I find out that half a town was they'd run away. And I finally came, everybody was kept himself closed, and I knocked on the door, and nobody answered. So I was sitting on the steps, sit down, and this I hear somebody walks there inside. And that's why my mother, she didn't know who, she wanted to pick to the. And I was waiting so impatiently, and then mother opened the door. I was thinking they run away too, and I was glad she didn't. And that was Saturday, and 2 weeks later, Monday, the Germans came in. The Germans came in, and first of all, when they came in, all the men they had to take out to the town square. All the men, not the women. And Polacks, not Jews, Polacks was no difference, everybody. And after they round up everybody, they say, who is not Jewish, to go over in the right. So all the Polacks by the big left. So later the Germans say money or watches or penknives to put them on a place they had to, so everybody took it off and dropped it in. They went through the Germans and picked their watches and what they needed, and the rest they told to the Polak, go ahead, grab it. Later they told to the Polacks, go ahead to pick up, if they see any suit they want or a pair of shoes to take. So the Polacks went and they picked. So when they took off their jackets, you find somebody had a couple pennies left. So they showed to the German. If they find something, the person got shot right away. By 11 people got shot there.
11 out of about how many? Out of about how many?
Oh, I would say it was around about 150, 160 people. And they were not all from our town, because some of them got caught by running. And in the meantime, the whole town, all the wooden houses you could see, they're all going up in flame. So all were going up in flame. And that was going on, they came in around 4 o'clock, and that was about 11 o'clock at night. They let us go and told us in 5 minutes, anybody who will, if they find anybody on the street, will be shot.
What did you do?
We run to the nearest house. I come there. I didn't want to go home, and I couldn't make it. And when I came there, another guy came in to the house too. And I didn't know who he is. You know? And I was sitting down, and he was sitting down, and he was a chusid, you know, he didn't have the yarmulke because it is, and he was merely something I didn't understand. And later he looks around, he sees, you know, we used to roll our own cigarette, and it was a little thing what you stuffed the cigarette. Mm-hmm. And I know, and I saw how he does, you know, he pulls out this to make it a little longer. He makes himself a cigarette. And I was thinking, my brother-in-law does it the same thing. And I look at him, and that was my brother-in-law. We changed so much you didn't recognize that person. And later I find out, next morning we went in the house, nobody was there. They were in the woods, the whole family was in the woods. And we joined them in the woods. And my sister's daughter, she was 6 years old that time, she ran home. She sneaked in home, and she took from a pillowcase, took off the pillowcase, and put all the pictures. That's how it got. And this cup she got.
Hold it up.
Hmm?
You hold it.
And this cup. That used to be my father's Kiddush cup, and later when my father died, my mother used it for Passover night. So, this. And that's how I got this. And we were in the woods for about 2 days. And later they came into the woods and they told us we can go home. And I had to go every day to work. In the meantime, it was the high holidays that time. I think it was a day for Rosh Hashanah. It didn't matter. There was no services because the synagogue did go up. The synagogue they bombed this. It wasn't from wood, but.
But they said you could go back to your own homes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were back in your own home.
So we were going home, and I had to report every day to work.
What kind of work? What did you do?
Most of them to repair highways. To repair highways, and to clean up things clean up from the hoses they had. And they established it was a headquarters. They did one to throw out all the furniture, bringing. That was going on till a day before Sukkot. A day before Sukkot, not Erev Sukkot, a day before Erev Sukkot. They gave an order in 24 hours. Yeah, like I said before, our town was the last town in Austria. Before 1918, you know, and 5 kilometers from us was Russia already. If you remember history, Russia and Hitler and Stalin made an agreement. Hitler took the part what used to be Austria and Germany, and Russia will take the part what used to be Russia before the war. So the Germans gave us 24 hours to go to the other side. And that was our lucky break that time. But the Polacks didn't give us an hour even. They chased us out right away because they didn't want to occupy the house, and it didn't take an hour. We were on the other side, and the Russians were not in yet. The Germans were not there either. Nobody was there, and we formed our own militia for the Polacks because that was their instinct. The first thing is to kill Jews. But anyhow, we had our own militia, and 3 days later the Russians came in. We welcomed them with we meet them, and it was the commander was a Jew, a Jewish commander, and we were 3 days or 4 days They told us the bad news that the border is a mistake. They have to go back for 50 kilometers. It used to be called the Curzon line. Something, the Curzon line. I don't remember exactly. That was about 45 kilometers. The first town was called Holoschitz. And we started walking. And we came there. And I remember, ich bin der Zeres im Restaurant, we were walking, took us 2 days. And
2 days walking east. You're walking east?
Of course,
Okay,
east.
okay.
Because the Russians
They
will...
thought the border was too...
Yeah. And we came there, and it was a little town what had altogether with Jews and non-Jews, altogether was about 1,500 people, and all of a sudden came 10,000, 15,000 people there. There was no place where to... So I went to Lvov. I left the family there, and me and my sister, we went to Lvov. Lemberg, what's it called? And we came in Lemberg, guess where I was sleeping the first night? In jail. Because the jails were empty. And later I met a friend, what a teacher, a Basyankiv teacher. Basyankiv, you know, used to be, here Basyankiv is just a Hebrew school. At home used to be the gurus, religious schools used to call Beit Jacob. And the teacher was from Grudek, Jagiellonsky, from a town, Grudek, Jagiellonsky. And she was our border. She was living now because everybody left home. I left home, and when she saw us, me and my sister, she took us to their house and she gave us a room. We were living there, and that was till the next summer around June. Yeah. Meantime, the Russian says everybody has to take out a Russian passport to be a Russian citizen. And so, nothing wrong with that, right? So, but it was, you see, catch to it. Soon you took out the passport of Russian citizens, you have to register to go to Russia. And they give you a choice. They give you towns, but they're all were in Donbass. You know what Donbass is? Donbass is the coal region, where the coal mines are. And nobody was anxious. A lot of people did, and they were sorry later. And I didn't register. So they let us go for a while, and all of a sudden they start catching on the street. Checked if you have a passport. If you don't have a passport, you get arrested. So we took off to the woods. And my sisters, we were a group from 11 people. My sister's daughter, she was about 6 years old that time. She's the one who took out pictures for me. She was the go-between. And she made if she wanted to contact, we would make a boat call, so we went to meet her. And she usually met us in the daytime. Once on a Friday night, the beginning of June was it, in 1940, on a Friday night, we hear her call, and right away I saw something wrong. We went to meet her, and she says, the whole family is already loaded in boxcars to ship to Siberia.
Let me stop here. When you were in the woods, tell me about it. I mean...
Well, we were not too long. It was a couple days. Maybe, you know, in a place like this, you lose the sense of time of this. We were around the town, you know, the landscaping there is different than here. Every town was surrounded with woods, every town. And the dukes usually, they opened this. And I was 24 years old. You know, when you this age, I don't know if I would be able to make it now. We picked all kinds of. The main thing was fish, but the thing is to know cooking was the biggest problem. Not to give away yourself, and our contact brought us food. It wasn't so bad. No, not the Muslim. I tell you why, because they were so busy with the Polish shiksas. They were so glad to see them that they didn't need it, a Jewish women.
Because nobody has ever talked about that.
You know, there is a reason. The Polish shiksas, they throw it themselves to them.
I understand, though, again, before you start this, I understand, though, that in the camps, some of the officers were homosexual, and they did molest the Jewish boys.
I don't know about that. I don't know. From the camp, I'm not familiar, nothing much from the camp.
Because nobody has said anything, but you gave that. That's a good enough reason.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't too long with them, and that's what I observed. The Polish shiksas, they right away, they couldn't talk their language, but
they spoke the international language.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in the woods, and you got the message that there were.
You got the message. So I asked,
so
I asked what does grandma that my mother was said, and she says to me, grandma told you to say that it's your own. You have to make your own decision. And I said, and I was thinking. You see, we were debating. Some guy says, from here we can help the family better, because we knew they sent them to Siberia. And we were thinking, from here you can help better, be help to them. And I was thinking, what can I help is do when the mother will be there? And I acted like a spoiled child. I want my mommy.
I'm not clear on something.
Yeah.
Could you just explain that the men were all in the...
Yeah, and we did split. Some of them said we should give ourselves in, and some of them said no, to stay here.
Okay.
The 5 of us went and gave ourselves, and I went and I joined my mother. And 6 of them didn't. From the 6 of them, I can tell you I never heard of again. One of the fathers, but I met him in Israel later, he says, why didn't you persuade him? Why didn't you hit him over the head and take him with you? What can you answer? And that's how we wind up in Siberia.
Tell me about the trip to Siberia. You went back and you were arrested?
It wasn't arrested, just pushed that in to the boxcar. This was a boxcar what in the war they used to use to transport horses. It was 8 horses, usually 4 horses in each side. They put in 35 people. And the first couple days, first of all, that was Friday night, and they were still rounding up people. When I came, they were still bringing people. And Saturday, late at night, Saturday, we started. And on the way, when we stopped on a station, we saw, gee, anyway, they used to call it a transport of the one from Tistan and Tistan. And they took us to Russia. the first time, as long as we were in the beginning of Russia, they didn't open the doors, even they kept it locked. There was little windows what we could open, and if a soldier passed through, we had to shut it. We passed through, I remember Kyiv was the first town what we met Jews. And we were not the first transport to pass through that time. You see, and the Jews found out, they came out and just throw bread in the windows. And they got beaten with the clubs, with the rifles, you know. And they didn't care.
Did you receive any help from non-Jews?
1 minute, I will be to it. Not from a Polak, I can tell you right away. Anyhow, after 3 days traveling, we were in Central Russia. They opened, and they all of a sudden opened the door, and they say, 4 people out. We didn't know what that is for. And I was the one between the 4 people. So what will be, will be. So he says, 2 buckets, if we have buckets. So we saw right away it's something that the situation improved a little. So we got two buckets. I don't know how we got it, we got 2 buckets. And we went there, they filled up 2 buckets with soup, and they gave us one of them about 5 loaves of bread, and the other one, that's the bread. And we went back, that's the food. Of course, the food wasn't kosher. And my mother didn't eat, just the bread, soup. And the children didn't eat. I would have eaten, but I didn't want to do it to my mother. I didn't eat either. So next day it was same thing. So we know, yeah, and the doors was already open. You could open. You could, when the train stopped, you could go down. And second day we bring the food again, and my sister, I was me, my mother, and my sister and her husband, and 6 children. And the youngest was 8 months old. The oldest was 13 old. And a young boy was there 3 years old, Shmuel. He says, why cannot we have a little bit soup? You see, I wasn't considered already too religious because I didn't be at the pious anymore, you know. And mother says, you see, Maya, he is such a goer and he doesn't eat and you want to eat. So I say, I can't come eat, they don't eat. I say, come on. I start eating, and mother was crying, but she didn't say nothing. And we ate the soup. And since that time later it happens that mother even cooked for me pork in Siberia. And we finally came, after 3 weeks traveling, we came to a point where they settled us on in villages between the Russians. If it wouldn't be for the Russians, many of us wouldn't have survived. There was so much help from them that I haven't got words of thanks to them. We didn't speak the same language, but still we didn't speak Russian at all. But still we communicate somehow. And they gave us, and they didn't have much by themselves. And they had orders not to mingle with us. But that didn't stop them. The Russians were, well, I haven't got words for them.
Tell me about the place. Tell me about the village where you were.
It was a village. It was 1,500 kilometers from from a railroad station. You see, we went with the railroad. They took us with the railroad to Irkutsk. I don't know if you heard Irkutsk. Irkutsk now is it one of the biggest science centers in Russia. You see, here in America there is state, and every state has a name. Over there is the same system. They call it gubernias, but the state is named after the capital, where the capital of in which city the capital is. That is called the whole state. That's called the Irkutsk, because Irkutsk was the capital. It's called the whole state. And from there, that's on the Baikal, in case you want to know, on the Baikal. The Baikal is, there is two lakes in the world, what rivers going out from him. And one is the Baikal in Russia, and the other one is the Kinneret in Israel. But the Jordan goes in and goes out. And the same thing is in the Baikal, the river Angara goes in and goes out. Now later they loaded us on barges on the Angara, and from the Angara we went to the Lena River. No, on the Angara we went to a town that's called Krasnoyarsk. From there they shipped us with trucks 400 kilometers to the Lena River. You see, they're on parallel. So the strip, the 400 kilometers, the way was awful, bumpy. Mother almost made, you know, a lot of people would have tried to escape, but if they were thinking you have to make this 400 kilometers, that's discouraged everybody. But anyhow, everybody came sick there. Anyhow, when we came that was from Krasnoyarsk to Zayarsk. From there they loaded us up on ships again, and we went with the Lena. From the Lena we got into the Vitim River, and we went all the way north. And our town, it's called Bodaibo. That was our last stop, Bodaibo. And this Bodaibo was a town of about 10,000 inhabitants, and it was the capital of the region, like the Kani seat. Mm-hmm. And there were two industries there. To cut lumberjacks, or to go in the gold mine. It's called the Zolotia Prisky, the gold mine region. And you had a choice where to register yourself.
Where did you live? Where did you live? What kind of housing?
1 minute. First of all, we were in this thing in an empty garage. That was still summertime, and from there they distributed us. A lot of people registered themselves to go there, I talked over with Mother. She says, "What do you know where to go? Wait, what our destiny will be. At least, in case it isn't so good, you didn't do it by yourself." They shipped out all of them what they registered, and the one who were left, they just loaded us up and sent us. It was the best place what was there. It was the Tzena, you know. And we went by river. From there we went by 95 kilometers the river. And the village was right on every village was there on the river, because the water is the one only source of water. The river is the only source of water. Now, from there, we came there, we had to go, so the women and children and the elder people could stay there. It was barracks. Now every barrack was very thin wood. It wasn't insulated at all. It was just plain, not even thick wood, just planks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the middle was a corridor, and it was like little, you know. I saw once in a picture how in the old time the borders had in New York. They had it separated the rooms for the borders. It was in a room. Our room was about like from the wall to the door, and about so wide. That's all. It was just they put in 10 people in a room. If a family was 2-3 people, they put 2-3 families in a room. We were 10 people, our family, and we were lucky. Because it doesn't matter how it is, there is not the biggest comfort they had to be. They're always fighting. We were our own family and we managed. And besides, I have to go away. I couldn't stay there. There was, and this was under the mountains there. And the first barrack on the mountains was 9 kilometers. 9 kilometers was a barrack there, what workers lived. And later, every 6 kilometers was a barrack in the mountains. I went to the 15 kilometer, used to call it the 15 kilometer. And I had to work there, and I was a lumberjack. I remember the first day we came, they gave us a piece of bread. And they told us that's the one only time we get it without nothing. And tomorrow we go to work. And depends on how much work we will do, that's how much bread you will get. And they gave us a saw and axes. And they didn't tell us nothing how to cut the wood, how to do it. And they made a team. That team was 3 people and a horse. A horse with a little sled. And all 3 people with the horse were going up in the mountain. And first they showed us where our section is, to knock down the trees. And one guy with the horse to let down, to bring down to the, it was, yeah. And even on the mountain, it was on a little stream there. So when to let down, and later we should knock down more trees, and when he comes up later, and to let down that is. Anyhow, we did start cutting the trees. We start cutting the tree on one side, and the other side, and the other side. It didn't work. So we let it go, we cut another tree, and another tree, and another tree. Soon we start cutting the 3 gems on the saw. Till it got dark, we came home. How much did you let down? He didn't answer. No bread. Anyhow, to make a long story short, the next morning we came, and the trees are all down. You see, it was a wind in the night. And once it knocks down one tree, it's like a chain reaction. It was a guy, the rabbi, the lunch of the rabbi, he says, "Thank you, God." God did it. We exchanged, when we came home in the nighttime, over there was different barracks. Over there wasn't the barracks like this. Over there was, it was the same size barrack, but instead enclosed, compartments, it was a shelves, in both sides shelves, and the middle was 2 like Franklin stoves, what we always kept the fire going. And once you let go of the fire, you were freezing. And we were sleeping on the shelves, we were sleeping. And we were talking, we exchanged ideas. And do you know that it didn't take long? I became a Stachanowitz. You know what a Stachanowitz is? It was a guy, Stachanowitz. He used to work in the gold mines. And they had a quota that so many coal you have to bring out. Now he worked on 400%. That means 4 times as much. So everybody who works on 400% is called a Stachanowitz. That's the name. And the Tisco is a special payok, a special food, you know, they give you more food and this. And of course the Russians were a lot of help. We met, it was teams, Russian teams, and we learned the language, we learned to communicate with them. And they told us how to keep the saw sharp, how to keep you see, I find out for the reason why they're so good. First of all, they're good-natured, they're not the Polacks. They didn't have a church to tell them that the Jews are Christ killers. And above all, they considered we have a common enemy, the government. Is their enemy as the same as it is our enemy. Now, I haven't got any good word to say about the government. But the people, sometimes when I come here, I wish that the American people are so nice as the Russians. If you came to a Russian house and he sit down to eat, he wouldn't sit down if you don't join him. He didn't have much to eat either. He shared with you the last piece of bread. I'll never forget when they sent us back. The whole town was on the beach to say goodbye to us. Men and women and child. They were singing and they brought us gifts. And it was like the joyous day in my life. One of the first, of course, the most joyous day in my life was when I arrived here in this country. And like I said, if it wouldn't be for the generosity of the Russian people, a lot of us wouldn't have made it.
During the time when you were a lumberjack and all that, did you hear news?
You had to have a bread card. You couldn't get bread. You couldn't get bread without a card. The card you got once a month, and it was every day. Now, if you didn't take a day, you know what I mean. Next day you couldn't come back and take yesterday's bread. So mother got a card, a bread card, a kind of me because I was a worker. And later, when I became a Stachanowitz, they gave mother 2 cards. One card I could keep with me and take bread for her on the mountain, and one card mother have. And I usually save the bread and later when, you know, before I became a Stachanowitz, it took about almost a year. It was the most crucial, the most crucial times. I never forget. We came home and we got a piece of bread, 800 gram. The 800 gram was, the bread was like a brick. As a matter of fact, they call it in Russia kirpich. That means a brick of bread. And if you squeezed it, you could squeeze that water. So heavy it was. 400 gram was so much. When I came home and I got my bread, I was thinking, I have to leave a piece of bread for tomorrow morning, not to go on the empty stomach to work. So I cut the bread in half. The half I left here, and the other one I had a piece of burlap, you know, wrapped it, and I had on the ceiling a hook, a nail, and I hung it up. You know, finish the bread slowly with hot water. We used hot water because on the stove was always hot water. And later I finished, I looked on the bread. Well, then I cut off a small piece. Never happened that I could save it till later, till I became a stachanwitz. My ration was doubled. I got my mother's cards and I brought home the bread.
How often did you go home? How often did you go back and see your mother during that time?
It depends. By every you see what they did in the village there, it was a banya. You know what a banya is? A banya. A banya is called a schwitz.
Mm-hmm.
Now the schwitz there is a plain room with a little oven with stones. In mitten the oven is a kettle, you know, with water, and it is a barrel with cold water. You take some water and pour on the stones. So, but the Russians, especially in Siberia, this is like a religion. So they let us go Saturday every two. It depends in the groups. One group this week, one group it's the other week. Saturday after work, you had to be Sunday evening. You have to be back, and Monday to work. So that's how I got home. Now, there were horses there. And somebody had to stay with the horses, to take care of the horses in the night time, to go to give them, to feed them and to take them to the water. It was about 12 horses. And I was on the 15 kilometer, like I said, and on the 25th kilometer was a dam, built a dam high on the mountain. Now the purpose of the dam was because, you see, we let down the woods and took them to the little stream. And later in the fall, we stacked up the woods. Later in the fall, they let go the dam. The water got big in the stream, and they let the logs go to the main river. And over there, they had a basin and kept them, and they tied the raft and sent them away. So it was a guy taken back on the dam. He was the caretaker. And he went every 6 weeks or so, he went to the village for supplies. And he lived there by himself. Once it was on a Saturday night, everybody did go in the village, and I was left to take care of the horses. And by myself. Around 9 o'clock at night, I go and feed the horses. And you know, you never was in this part of the world where the snow is there like one sheet from about 10 kilometers. If you hear somebody, a horse coming, you could hear it in the nighttime. You could hear like. So I saw somebody. I heard a noise like somebody's coming. I was asking, who can that be? You know, it isn't like now to go out at night to be afraid. I wasn't afraid. Nothing to be afraid there. You know, where we lived, we didn't have locks on the door. Of course, it was nothing but to steal, yeah. But nobody touched nobody's. Even the goyim, the Russian native. So I was thinking, who can that be? It didn't take long to feed 16 horses, takes a little while. And I hear it came closer, closer, closer. I put on my coat over the dish, and I was staying outside and waiting, looking around, what's going on. And I see the guy who is on the 35 kilometer, the caretaker of the dam. He comes with his load, his supplies for his time. And he says, did you feed the horses? I say, yeah. He says, you haven't got a little bit extra oats. He says, because they cut me short for my horse, the oats. I said to him, are you kidding? In the meantime, I stopped and I lean on this slate. I see cabbage. Yes, cabbage, which I never saw it the day since I was there. I say, cabbage, huh? Where did you get cabbage? He opened up, he got a whole sack with cabbage. He opens up the sack and he takes out on a head of cabbage. It was too small. He digs in deep, he takes out a big one. He says, it's US. So I went to the stall and I said, give me your bucket. And I give him a bucket with oats. And I say, but don't feed your horse here, keep on going. And he left, and I took the cabbage, and I took an axe and chopped it up, filled this in the bucket. I didn't have nothing except a little bit salt I had. I salted it and put it on the stove, and I cooked, and I let it stay on the stove. In the middle of the night, I wake up, a guy wakes me up, the guy from our barrack up. Yeah. You see, later in the beginning we had nothing but our people. Later we got, as the war did go on, you know what I mean? And they took a lot of men to the army. And we got mixed up. We worked with the Russians, and they find out we're as good as the Russians we can work. And he was from our barrack, and he says, what are you cooking? I say, it is not your business. He says to me, I have bread. And he shows me a loaf of bread. Well, we took 2 spoons. Yeah, by the way, I want to tell you something. If you came to a Russian and you sit down to eat, they don't have extra plates. From a big dish, everybody digs in with a spoon. Only a spoon you have. We took the spoons, we sat down, and we eat. And we finished the whole loaf of bread. And we finished by half a bucket of the cabbage. And we went to sleep. In the morning, we wake up, and he went and he helped me take the horses to the water. You know, it was quick, and we fed the horses. And we sat down, and he brought in another loaf of bread. And we finished this. And we were sitting and talking, and I didn't ask him from where. You know, over there, you don't ask too many questions. And we sit and talking, we took a nap. In the afternoon, when it was time already, we know the people came, he took his everybody had like a burlap sack, you know, with 2 strings here.
Knapsack.
Yeah, he takes it and he goes to the village. And he did, you see, soon he heard the first people coming, he turned around and came back like he is the first one to come. And later the guys came, and the guy who was in charge of it was a little store there, you know, what they give out the bread. He came in, he says, who was here in the night? And I say, nobody. He says, you know, everything there when it's lack, the lack doesn't mean nothing. Only a plumber, you know, a seal, like wax, you know, red wax, with the seal of with the stem. He says, everything was all right. 3 loaves of bread is missing. I say, I don't know nothing. And that was a mystery, and they trusted me that I didn't do it. It came to the end of there. He says, if you wouldn't have such a record, he says, we would suspect you did it. But anyhow, 3 loaves of bread was missing, and we ate 2 loaves of bread. And I didn't tell him nothing. After 2 weeks later, I see in the nighttime he takes an axe under his fuffike under his coat, and he goes out. You see, he had hidden the loaf of bread in the snow somewhere. And he cuts it in half there and comes in, And he opens my tis from the tis where I sleep and put on a hevel over bread. He shared this with me. Later, they took us away from this village and they took us to the main town where when we came the first stop to the capital from the county. And over there, I started working as a stevedore.
Is your mother there with you too, or is everybody's together there?
Yeah, matter of fact, I came in my sister's daughter, we went as a four. You see, I didn't make it clear. In the meantime, Germany attacked Russia.
So everything had to move back.
So they find out that we are not enemies at all. So they were easy on us. But in Russia it takes everything longer, especially in the wartime. In the meantime, it was formed a Polish government in exile. It's called the Anderson government. It's a headquarters somewhere in France or I don't know. No, I don't know exactly where the headquarters were. And we were considered as Poles. They didn't call us Jews. We were considered as Poles. And they easy on us a little bit. Now, if you can go away to the border, you could have gone. They didn't stop you. So soon it got warmer a little bit. The river was still frozen. Because if the walk is only in the winter time, in summertime, you cannot make this except on a boat, which you had no chance. So me and my sister's daughter, we walk there and we find a place where to live, and I got a job in the port as a stevedore, so I could bring the whole family. And we had there, and the base where our port is, across the street was the headquarters from the NKVD, from the militia. Over there, the police, they call militia. The police and the NKVD. And it was a restaurant there, and we ate there lunch. All the workers, they gave us a lunch. Of course, we had to pay for it, but that's, over there, the money doesn't mean nothing. It means if you can get it. Now, we shared the restaurant, we and the NKVD. When it came, they used it all day. Now, we used it only middle in the work, like when I started to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. At 12 o'clock.
Yeah, go ahead.
At 12 o'clock, we had lunch. So when we came into the restaurant, we were about 60, 70 guys. When we came into the restaurant and the NKVD was there, they had to vacate it. He had to take his plate and go out. And as the war did go on, the food was less and less, and it was very, before we had every day a piece of meat, later we didn't have. Once, one dish from the kitchen, we had a soup we had every day, and sometimes a kartoffel, sometimes a little bit rice. Akira brings me a cutlet to me, a hamburger. And I look at her, it's for me, she says, yeah. Over there you have to be careful in case you, I say, why? She says, look there. And I see in the doors there is the guy with a loaf of bread. He became the head of the restaurant. Now, it was going on, a lot of stealing did go on. And if they caught somebody, they didn't call him a thief, they caught him. His luck is that they caught him, it's bad luck. Now, if they caught a man, that's what it. If they caught a woman, the whole group went in. No offense against women, but that's the fact.
Why? Why did they?
I don't know. You see, the prosecutor came the first thing he says, if you give out who was with you, we will be easier on you. And they fall for it, but they not easier for it. And that's how it happened when they caught a man, you know, you didn't have any worry.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody stole. And if it wouldn't be for the stealing,
You wouldn't have survived. Nobody would have.
it would be hard to survive. I would survive by myself. I would survive, but I had 10 people in my family. You know what I mean? And it was a big help for them. I never forget. They give us every year Valenkis. The Valenkis is pelt booze. You know, in Siberia, what you wear, they not leather at all. And every year they give us new one if you are a good worker. And when I brought home a pair of Valenkis one, my sister's son, he was about 8, 9 years old, he says, "You did work today at Valenkis? That's mean, you see, he knew everything. When I work on, I steal." I was a professional gunner. I'm telling you, yeah, I must tell you this. The first day I arrived to be as a stevedore, and I was the one and only from our people between the Russians. And it was on a Saturday. I started working Saturday. Saturday 4 o'clock, I worked till 12 o'clock. You know, Saturday night is very quiet, nobody there. It is, and everybody, they did want to take something, flour, we worked on flour. But they were afraid on me. They don't know, maybe I am from there. But they find that I'm not from Zenk over there, but still they were afraid. If I don't steal, you know what I mean, I can squeal on them. So a couple guys helped me, and they tightened my belt here, and they filled that here full with flour. And I came home 12 o'clock at night, and I came home, the door was open, and everybody was sleeping. And we had a little, on the tablecloths, you know, on Shabbos, it has to be a tablecloth on Shabbos. But we did have a tablecloth from a burlak sack. But mother soaked this in water and hanged this in the sun to get light, it looked like. And I see Saturday night, this was Saturday night, she had this folded down, was laying there. So I took this and spread it on the floor. And I kneeled and I took out the shirt and pulled out the flour and tied this up and put this on the table. And I went to sleep. Mother got up usually early and she said, Tillim. You know what Tillim is? Psalm. Every day she recited Psalm.
Okay.
And she looks something white on the floor and she looks, it's flour, and she looks on the bundle. She ran over to me and she hit me. I don't want my son to be a gunner. Now what do you do in a case like this? You don't hit her back. I run out. And I was going around, and I came home at 12 o'clock, and I had to go, and I had to go 4 o'clock back to work. And I was going around, I didn't know where. Around 10 o'clock, I was thinking, I have to get some sleep. I have to go back to work. So I go home and I sneak in, but try to sneak in the house. And my sister's children see me and they jump on me. Oh, come home, me est. They made, like matzes, with water and baked this on the stove. And I came home so afraid, and mother started crying. She says, I hope God will watch over you. You don't stay a gunner. I promise if everything will come back to normal, I will not come here. And I'm keeping so far my promise.
What happened? How long were you there?
We were there 6 years. After 4 years, they sent us near Stalingrad. You see, they don't keep you in Russia, they don't keep you. Yeah, in the meantime, we had to take out the Russian passport. But when they took us, when they came to mobilize to take to the army, they didn't take us to the Russian army, they took us to the Polish army, but it was under the Russian, it's called the Anders army. But now, when they came in the spring, there wasn't many good workers left because all the Russians were in the army. And most work was done by the women. Now, we were a bunch of guys, but we were practically the main workers there. So the upravляющий is the director of this. They took us and sent us away on a mission. He knew when they came, he sent us away on a mission. And gave us food, enough food. And we were staying, we were nowhere, we were outdoors. You know what I mean? We camped out, we didn't have a camp even, but we were living the life of Riley for a couple of weeks till the recruits, you know, till the recruiting team left with the ships. Mm-hmm. So they sent over for us to bring us back. And that's why I never served in the army. And a lot of our people, if you wasn't a good worker, they send them right over there, let them go to the army.
So there was important work that you needed to do. So
Oh, that was important work. Okay. They had, as a stevedore, the whole thing depend on us. You see, because during the 2.5 months, what they didn't ship, they didn't unload, you couldn't get all winter anymore. There was no contact all winter with the outside world. No. Later, in the later years, in last year, they had with a plane. It was, but not to ship things, but and the plane was very interesting. I never saw it since. It was, you didn't need it an airfield there was no airfields. You landed on the frozen river, you know, like two slates. Instead of wheels, he had slates. And in the summertime, he landed on the water, like two ships instead of wheels.
And still during this time, did you have any contact or news about the war? What was going on? The one contact we had is so. First of all, I want to tell you that we smoked. Now the Russian cigarette, there was no cigarettes. Tobacco. The tobacco looks like buckwheat. You know, the tobacco is made from the roots from the tobacco leaf, not from the tobacco leaf, but from the roots. It is chopped up. And we smoked this in a newspaper. So, if you are good, on the newspaper is a black market, because especially over there is not much newspaper, and you needed this to smoke cigarettes. So if you are a good worker, you got every time when the Pravda came, you get a Pravda. So I got a Pravda just for smoking. You know, the news wasn't important. And later, every now and then, we did read. You didn't have nothing else to do. And what year was it when the Russians, when Stalingrad, when they chased the Germans from Stalingrad, and the Russians did start make progress. Now, when they crossed to the Polish border, that's when we were interested.
we didn't smoke the paper till we read it. Now, I don't know if you heard of Ille Ehrenberg. You never heard of him. You heard of Ille Ehrenberg. Ille Ehrenberg was a Jewish writer. Matter of fact, it was a controversy about the Babi Yar, what he wrote. He was one of the finest writers what Russia had, but he couldn't use his talent because he couldn't write what he wants. You know what I mean? He had to write what they want him to write. Now he went with the Russian army and he sent back reports practically every day, in every Pravda what we got. It was a report from Ille Ehrenberg. And he just wrote what he saw. And he started writing about, you see the first things they start taking Poland and we find out from the whole thing what happened there. And you know something? After we find out, we actually realized that we are in a heaven. That we were the luckiest people. And I looked even on the Russian government, a difference. You know what I mean? I didn't hate them so much. It did remind myself like Joseph's brothers. You know what I mean? Joseph didn't hate the brothers later. He saw it was a destiny that was the lucky thing what he said, what they sold them. And we finally realized, and later the war got over in 1945, the war was over. My mother was still alive. She was so happy. She was dancing on the street. I don't know where she got the
How did you find out the war was over? What happened?
I find out 3 days later. How I find out? There was on the dam. They sent us over to the high dam there. Me and another guy. And a guru, I komsomolets. You know what a komsomolets is? The young communist. You see, on our mission, we weren't trusted by ourselves. She had to be. We had a lot of food there for the guy and equipment. We had to fix the dam, to repair the dam, and that was no middle. The guy who was on the dam, he was born there. Not exactly born. Since he was a young boy, he never left this. When we came there, we were in the first night we were sitting and talking. He says, "Is it true they have a gelazen horse? That's mean an iron horse." He never saw a train. He never left there. But anyhow, we were there. I don't remember how long. 2 weeks ago. When we came home, on the way home, we passed the first village, and we see flags, Russian flags, they're hanging from every house. The first thing we asked the Guru Tamara, she's a komsomolets, what kind holiday? She says, I don't know nothing. What kind of holiday? And we keep on going, and we show our family what we know from our people, and say, "Hey, Chaim, what's going on?" He says, "You don't know, the war is over." The war is over, and they gave him a whole week off. I mean, nobody works a whole week, and anyhow, I was rushing home. We had about 8 kilometers to go, and I came home. Mother came out and meet me, and she was dancing, and that was in 1945. Took a whole year till they sent us back.
What did you do during that year?
Oh, life did go normal. We worked, and but it was It was meantime from the joint distribution they came special for our people. I remember suits like Eisenhower jackets, and everyone got 5 pounds of sugar, and 2 pounds of butter, and 10 pounds of flour. That was before Pesach. That's the first time we baked matzahs. And they sent us back to, I got off, the train went to Germany, where it used to be Germany. Gleiwitz, I got off in Krakow, I got off. And that was 3 days before Passover.
And you were still all together?
Hmm?
Were you all together?
Mother died. Mother died in the middle of the summer, March, the war was over March, right? April, May, June, July. In July, Mother died. And she couldn't, she was, I don't know, when things got to be better, well, I guess nothing what you can do about it. We came home, minus Mother, we came home. And my sister and brother-in-law, they were strictly religious. And the biggest worry was, there was 4 days before Passover. How will you make Pesach? Krakow, the main city, Krakow, has, before Krakow is a station called Plaszów, Krakow Plaszów. You know, like here is North Philadelphia station. When we came to the Plaszów station, a guy going around and shouting, Amchu, Amchu. You know the word Amchu? It developed a secret word, Amchu. When you looked on a person, you didn't know who he is. Everybody was dressed like the Russians. And you didn't want to know if you say, Amchu, that means you are people. In Hebrew, Amchu is you are people. It's the Talmud says when King David, the prophet Jonathan says, Amchu, your people needed to be fed, and he calls them Amchu. And that's because so all what you said is Amchu. If the person responded Amchu, that's mean, hey, Shalom Aleichem. And if the person says, what? So he said, well, I was thinking you are somebody I know. And they came out, Amchu, and what is? And they sent us, and they gave us card. First of all, you had a treat. They gave you a treat there, and they gave us card to report on the Dluga Street, and that is where the Jewish organization, the joint distribution. We came there, they have matzahs and van, and you name it, including cigarettes. As a matter of fact, they gave us Philip Morris cigarettes. And as long as I smoked, I was favoring Philip Morris because I got it that time. And they gave us a place where to live, where to sleep. And started a new war, but we still saw the Russians around. And the Polacks were not very friendly with us. They were not too happy that we survived. And there was still a lot of killings going on from the Polacks. I was married that time. When my mother died, I got married. I got married in Russia. After my mother died, about 4 months later. And my wife was pregnant, and I was thinking I have to run away before the child gets born. And I made my way to Czechoslovakia, crossed the border from Czechoslovakia. It wasn't so easy, but I finally made it.
Why? Why did you have to? Why did you have to get away before the child?
Because I didn't want to go away from Poland. I didn't want to stay in Poland.
Okay.
I just didn't want to stay between the Polacks, and I wasn't very keen of the Russian I saw that Russia is in. And what I mean, most of the Jews that time escaped. And when once we came to Czechoslovakia, the Suchnut, they used to call him the Bricha, was active there, and they were waiting on the borders, they knew, and they picked us up, and from that time we were under their guidance.
What other things did the Britannia do? Their other activities?
I don't know. That's the thing what they did for me. I'm not familiar much. They just kept us, and they gave us a guide. They gave us a guide, and we were a group. We named us in a group, and from there they took us to Pressburg. From Pressburg we went to another town, and from there they took us to Austria. And later we had to cross the East German border. We had to cross. So we were staying in Augsburg, Germany, Austria, Augsburg. I think about 2 months to wait till they made contact with somebody. And one night we used to walk. They took us with trucks to a wood, and over there we were waiting till it gets dark, and we start walking. And we walked till we got past the East German border. We came to West Germany. And over there the American army was waiting for us with a train, and they took us to Ulm. And we came in Ulm around this time in Rosh Chodesh Elul, a week before Rosh Hashanah. And the second day I came, my son was born. He was the second boy to be born in the camp. The bris was like today, like this year, Shabbos, the first day after Rosh Hashanah. There was a moil there, and he was the second baby born in the camp. Of course, we were 3 years. Took us 3 years till we could make it to the United States. I was registered actually to go to Israel. Meantime, Israel was in 48. We followed all the news, and after when Israel became a country, it was a legal thing to go to Israel. You could register and go, and I had registered. Now, in our camp, we elected people to run the camp. And there was a teacher who was anxious to be the leader, and we didn't, and I saw right away he's not the right person. I didn't support him. And I was active in the Mizrahi organization. And I didn't support him. And he didn't want. And later, when we made an office, he was the secretary of the registration to go to people who registered to Israel. When my papers came up, he put them on the bottom. He got even with me. Later,
can you describe the camp? The DP? Can you describe the DP camp?
What do you mean? In what sense?
What was it like? What did it look like? Where was it built?
It was in an army camp, a former army camp, and we had a Medrash with a mikveh, and you didn't have to work. If you didn't want to work, you got work in the camp. The paid was not in money, but it was paid in products. The main paid was in cigarettes. the highest working, the highest paid for a worker was 13 cartons of cigarettes a month. Of course, you smoked only, how much you smoked in a month? A carton, 2 cartons, the rest. It was, the Germans paid, of course, everybody was active in the black market. Everybody. In the black market, we were only a small wheel in the black market. The Germans were, but everybody took the Jews in the black market. It was once George Leventhal. He was the advisor of the Jewish affairs to Eisenhower. And they told him that the Jews are active in the black market. So he organized a search one day all over the country on the trains, because the main communication was with the trains. Every station in the country everybody was checked for black marketeering. They find out less of a 10% were Jews. You know why? Because the thing was done on Yom Kippur morning. And George Leventhal said, this one who were arrested, he will not do a hand to help him out. If he can do it on Yom Kippur, let him sit there. And of course it was other things. Now it was regular, everybody got something. It was, they distributed flour, butter, you know, all kind from the UNRWA. You know what the UNRWA is? There still is, the Arabs still using the UNRWA, the Arabs. It's called United Nations Relief Organization. As a matter of fact, that's what they used to call it, UNRWA camps. But we got the UNRWA product, and besides from the UNRWA, we got from the joint distribution. The joint distribution amounted much more than the UNRWA. And I worked. When I worked, I got in, and CS2, you know, that's a trick what they usually do, and they took it over. But anyhow, he gave me this machine, and he tells to the worker to deliver it. And the worker started hollering. I didn't understand much. He says, right away. He put me and my wife and the children on the truck, and
Let's look at these pictures and at your work here you've brought.
which one would you like?
Let's
On the family pictures.
turn them so that they're facing the camera.
1 minute. Here, that's my mother.
And let's this is in, first one is in what year?
Hmm?
This
was from Siberia. And that was a year, not a year, yeah, a year before we came to Siberia.
So this is in 19...
That is in 1938.
And then the smaller
And that
pictures
is in 1942, I would say, 1942. When they told us to take us passports in Siberia, you had to take out passports. Now that's the little guy who was in Siberia. That's him, he was in Siberia. Now that's in 1940, in what year, 66?
66, this
Yeah.
is on the back.
Yeah, that's his family. He is in Israel now. Here's a picture, but that's 2 years before, 1937. We went home Shabbos from davening, and my mother ducked her head. You see, she didn't want Shabbos to we went from the synagogue.
Are you getting these? Is this okay?
My grandfather. I want to show you myself too here.
These are. What years are these?
This is 1943, and this is 1945 after the 1946. This is my sister's children. That's a well we had in the backyard. That was about 1939, in August 1939. And later, well, they all survived. They all were in here. That's the family picture what we made 2 months before the wars in July in July 39. Now this is the one only little girl what didn't survive. Not she and not her parents either.
Mm. And then this is you on the...
That's me, yeah. And that's the guy what you show, his family is 8 children now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's her brother, he didn't survive either, no. That was before the war, me, right before 1939. Here's my brother-in-law with his grandson in Israel.
This looks pretty recent.
That was in one of my, no, that's already by 8 years old, 8 years. Yeah, I took this picture, That was my sister and her husband, which they didn't survive.
These are the ones who didn't survive.
Yeah. That's about it, yeah.
When did you start making with woodwork?
Well, my rabbi taught me at home. Now, my rabbi didn't know a difference from a nail and a hammer. But I always say that the rabbi taught me, at home, everybody had a Gregor on Pire. And most of the time, the parents made it, or a belfer. You know what a belfer is? The belfer was the helper to the melamed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he brought the child. Now I never, my mother could never pay the belfer. And the belfer usually made for her. And I didn't want to be like any other boy, so I started fooling around and I made it in the old country, but not the way as it is. You see, the reason I say the rabbi, because here the rabbi hands out the 10 Gregors.
Mm-hmm. Why don't you hold that up?
Yeah, if my rabbi would have given me a 10 Gregor, I wouldn't be encouraged to not make it. Oh, that's right.
Real. Is there anything else you want to add? Is there anything you'd want to say to people 3 or 4 generations from now who might be watching this?
Yeah, I would like to say, first of all, I am proud to be a Jew, because as a Jew, I never was lost. Wherever I came in any kind of trouble, you could always find help between the Jews. And now Natan used to be the rabbi. His definition of a Jew, they're trying to find out in Israel who is a Jew. He had a very good answer, who is a Jew. When I grew up, you hear over there they did beat up Jews and here a pogrom. The rabbi used to say any person, when he hears hundreds of miles away that a Jew got beat up and his heart aches, that's a Jew. It had nothing to do with the beard or the payers. It has to do with the heart. Now, above all, I'm proud to be an American. The first chance when I came in this country, I went to see the Statue of Liberty. And when I came, and me, my wife, and the children, and there was the elevator, and my boy says, Jess, he was a little boy that time. He said, that's too easy. He said, let's walk. You know, I had such a feeling I couldn't describe the feeling. I'm not a writer or a poet, you know what I mean? I don't have the words for it. But I can tell you one thing, the same feeling I had when I came the first time to the Kotel, Jerusalem. I was a year after the wall was liberated. And when I came there, I had the feeling it reminded me, the same thing happened to me when I was at the Statue of Liberty. And I don't know, the American people, they don't realize how lucky they are to be born in a country like this. Last summer, I was in the airport in New York. I was waiting of my nephew. He arrived from Israel. And it was a family they were waiting there too. And I don't know from where they are, from Vietnam or from, I cannot recall, I don't know. But they were foreigners and they hardly talked English. And a little boy from 4 years he had, and mother hit him. They say, you cannot do that. And he says, this is America. You can do whatever you want. You know, I went over and I hugged the child. I understood what he said. This is America. And Harry Golden, that's my favorite book, only in America. When I came here, my boy Jess was 3 years old that time. And we used to live in a camp there in Germany. And here we live on the street, and he can go around on the street. He says, is that all America? Is that all America? He said he couldn't. Well, America is the longest I ever lived in one country, not only on one place, but in one country where I was, the first time in my life I was so jealous. I moved to 50th and Brun. In 1952 I moved to 50th and Brun. And I went into the next door neighbor, a colored fellow he was. And I introduced myself to him. And I will be your neighbor. And I talked, he was very nice. He offered me a drink. We sitting talking. I say, how many years are you living here? He says, I was born in this house. He was a man from 80. Now the first thing when people hear the word Siberia comes in their mind cold. Well, I wouldn't say it isn't cold, it is cold, but cold is not the main problem.
Hold on a second.
When you're,
South Philadelphia.
no.
We're in South.
Are we rolling?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Now I tell you where I was, which part. I tell you the nearest neighbor is a very known to you, near Alaska.
What was the weather like?
The weather like it was, it reached to 60 below zero. Now, to describe what 60 below zero is, it's like a fire. If you take water and pour it, it falls on ice cubes. And that's nothing exaggerated about it. And the lucky thing that the weather is so cold. If it wouldn't be so cold, people wouldn't be able to exist there. The winter is 9 months winter. 3 months, 1 month spring, 1 month summer, 1 month fall. That was the worst time for us. How many people died out there? They all died during the summertime. Not 1% died in the winter time. Well, now, the conditions what we lived, can you imagine if it would be hot weather? First of all, the worst thing was in the change of weather when it started. When the change of weather from hot to cold was normal, was all right. You felt a relief, but from cold to hot it was the worst time to us. All the sicknesses broke out, all the epidemics, and we had every day 20 to 30 deaths. It was awful. You know, I could never. I'm not a chemist. I cannot understand. But when I had the store, I know if I wanted a cold drink, you know, I had a cooler. I put in a 7-Up right in the corner where I knew that it get good cold. And I took it out and see a 7-Up. And soon I opened it up, and the hot air hits it, already it forms ice in it. Did you ever notice that? I start thinking and realize what happened to us in the springtime. They change. The change in the weather, the pressure. What happened? We, in the summertime, everybody got, they used to call it chicken blindness. Why they call it the chicken blindness? Because a chicken cannot see in the nighttime. Soon it got dark, we became blacked out. And that was what not sufficient nourishment, vitamin, or it was there with us, doctors and lawyers. One doctor he says, if we can eat every day at least an onion, would be, he says, would be a big thing for us. They claimed, here, you don't want fat meat. A piece of fat was, if you are a good worker, they give you a piece of fat back. Salad, they used to call it.
Were there any times you couldn't work because of the weather?
When it was 60 below zero, you were not supposed to go to the work. But there were a bunch I don't want to use it. You know what they did? The guys who were in charge of us, they put the thermometer. You see, the weather works there so. When we woke up in the morning, we looked on the street. We looked out. From every house had to go out our smoke. If the smoke, because always the fire, the way the buildings were built, they were not insulated. If the smoke did go out straight up with no interruption, we know it's horrible. Because there is no wind. It never mixed. When it was a wind, the weather was a break in the weather. The worst thing was in spring was you went to work. In the morning was 30, 35 below zero when you went to work. In the daytime, it became 60, 70 above. The clothes was you sweated out. When you go home from work, it was already cold again, and your clothes became like an armor. You stayed frozen. You walked like a scarecrow. You couldn't bend it down. And but still, we loved the winter. The people, you see, when they sent us to Siberia, a lot of people were sent in the tropical climate to Samarkand. Tashkent, that's on the Iranian border. Their rate of survival was much less than, or much less. My, an aunt of mine was sent there with the children. She and both sons, they in 1 week, and the biggest killer was their typhus, of course.
What other ways did the weather affect your life there in Siberia?
Well, it didn't affect the air was very clean. We didn't have headaches there. We were hungry, but but no headaches. You see, I don't say the cold weather was no problem, but when there is a bigger problem, this doesn't count. The biggest problem was to eat. And to go hungry, I wouldn't wish it on nobody. I was so left many times, in my store. Mothers came in with the children in the morning, and with a lunchbox, with a sandwich and this, and they're looking for a tasty cake, for the child. And I have 3-4 kinds. No, he wants that's what I don't have. And the boy says, "Well, I will go hungry to this." And I start laughing, and the mother says, "What's funny?" I say, "Never mind." Hungry is not only this, it brings you down the morale.
Did you dream about food when you were hungry?
Never stop dreaming. We were once sitting and a guy talked how we were eating. The other guy went there and he didn't want to kill him. Do you have to talk about it? And still,